In the vast, pitiless cathedral of the Imperium of Man, the purest image of humanity is venerated as a holy icon. To be human is to be made in the God-Emperor's image, perfect, untainted, and unwavering. Yet this grand sermon is a lie, a comforting prayer whispered against a terrifying truth. For the Imperium, in its desperate 10,000-year war for survival, is a machine that runs on the blood of the impure. It is a fortress whose walls are mortared with the bones of those who deviate from the sacred form. They are the Abhumans, humanity's forgotten children. Its strange and twisted progeny, born in the crucibles of alien worlds. Their journey is an agonizing pilgrimage, a story of prejudice and pragmatism, of scorn and sacrifice. They are the living, breathing hypocrisy at the heart of the Imperium, and their suffering is the price of its continued existence. Theirs is a story written in the blood-soaked margins of imperial history, a chronicle of agony and unending utility. To truly comprehend the soul of the Imperium, we must walk in their oversized, undersized, and often unseen footsteps. If you wish to join this journey and ensure these forgotten histories are brought to light, subscribe to this channel and share this record, for every voice added makes their silent chorus stronger. This chapter delves into the very definition of abhumanity, a concept born from the conflict between imperial doctrine and galactic reality. We will begin with the promise of the Great Crusader unified galaxy for a single, pure human formant, contrasted with the chaotic aftermath of the Age of Strife. As humanity was scattered across millions of worlds, it was forced to adapt or die. We will explore how generations of exposure to crushing gravity, lethal radiation, and alien ecosystems twisted the human genome, creating stable, divergent strains. This chapter will draw the fine, bloody line the Imperium scribes between a sanctioned Abhumana, useful Tulanda, mutant, a heretical monster fit only for the pyre. It is a story of survival and classification, where a single gene can be the difference between a place in an Astra Militarum regiment and a screaming death in an exterminator S-fire. Here, we focus on the two most visible pillars of abhuman service within the Astra Militarum, exploring the duality of their existence. The first half is dedicated to the Ogryns, the giant, simple-minded shock troops born on high-gravity prison worlds. We will examine their childlike loyalty, their terrifying strength, and the brutal reality of their lives as living battering rams, often treated as little more than intelligent beasts of war. The second half shifts to the Ratlings, the small, cunning, and preternaturally skilled snipers of the Imperial Guard. We will journey to their temperate homeworlds and uncover the source of their reputation for insubordination and larceny, while also celebrating their vital role as infiltrators and marksmen. This chapter is a study in contrasts, the blunt, loyal force of the Ogryn versus the sharp, self-serving precision of the Ratling, both indispensable, both despised. This chapter is a eulogy. It tells the tragic story of the most advanced and independent abhuman race the galaxy has ever known, the Squats. We will trace their history from their colonization of the high-gravity worlds of the galactic core, through the development of their technologically sophisticated and fiercely independent lay-holds to their millennia of proud service alongside the Imperium. We will explore their unique culture, their mastery of engineering, and their complex relationship with the Adeptus Mechanicus. Then, we will bear witness to their cataclysmic end, the arrival of a tyrannid hive fleet that devoured their homeworlds, effectively erasing their civilization from the galaxy. This is a somber reflection on loss and memory, a journey alongside the few scattered survivors who now exist as living ghosts. The last remnants of a mighty people consumed by the great devourer. Venturing to the fringes of imperial society, this chapter illuminates the vast, bizarre spectrum of lesser-known abhuman strains. This is where the Imperium's paranoia and reluctant tolerance are most apparent. We will investigate the rumors of the Felinids, the agile, cat-like Abhumans of Carlos McConnell. We will dive into the deep oceans to find the aquatic pelagers whose entire existence is tied to the water. We will uncover the story of the Afriel strain, Abhumans genetically engineered to be perfect soldiers, whose very perfection led to their being declared suspect and hunted to near extinction. Finally, we will touch upon the dark fate of the Beastmen, or Gores, a cautionary tale of an Abhuman strain whose instability led them down the path of damnation and service to the ruinous powers, forever blurring the line between sanctioned mutation and outright heresy. The final chapter synthesizes the Abhuman experience in the 41st millennium into a single, agonizing truth. Their existence is one of tolerated utility. We will explore the deep-seated prejudice they face from baseline humans, the scorn of the ecclesiarchy, which views their forms as a corruption of the divine, and the cold, brutal pragmatism of the imperial war machine that cannot function without them. This chapter is a reflection on their purpose. Are they merely tools, or are they truly human? They fight and die for an emperor who would not recognize their form, and for an imperium that fears them as much as it needs them. Their agonizing journey is without end, a constant struggle for acceptance in a galaxy that sees them only as a necessary evil. Their pain is the bedrock upon which the Imperium stands. The Lectitio Divinitatis, the holy text of the Imperial Creed, is unequivocal in its scripture. The human form is sacred. It is the vessel of the soul, the blueprint of the divine, the shape in which the God Emperor himself walked among mortals. Across 1,000,000 worlds, priests in incense-choked cathedrals preach this sermon of purity, their voices echoing from vaulted ceilings adorned with images of strong, noble, and unblemished men and women. To deviate is to be corrupt. To mutate is to invite damnation. This is the golden lie upon which the Imperium is built, a comforting and absolute truth that allows 1,000,000,000,000 souls to sleep under the gaze of a benevolent, unchanging God. But in the cold, practical reality of the 41st millennium, this sermon is a luxury the Imperium cannot afford. The truth is that the human form is not, and has never been, a constant. It is clay, shaped and twisted and brutalized by the hostile galaxy it sought to conquer. This agonizing journey begins not with sin, but with survival. During the Great Crusade, the Emperor sought to unite the scattered progeny of humanity, to forge a single, stellar empire for a single, unified species. But the age of strife had lasted for millennia. Humanity had been cast to the celestial winds, colonizing worlds of unimaginable diversity and horror. They were seated on planets with gravity so immense it could crush a Terran-born man into paste, forcing the human skeleton to thicken into dense, rock-like structures and muscles to swell into fibrous slabs. They were abandoned on worlds bathed in the dim, red light of a dying star, their eyes widening over generations, their skin bleaching to a ghostly pallor to absorb every precious photon. They breathed in atmospheres laced with strange chemicals, their biology warping to process toxins that would kill an unadapted human in seconds. This was not a chaotic corruption. It was evolution, brutal and swift, played out on 1,000 different worlds at once. When the Crusade fleets rediscovered these lost colonies, they did not always find the noble, familiar form of mankind. They found beings who had been irrevocably changed by their new homes. And here, the Imperium was forced to make a terrible, pragmatic choice. Its entire ideology was based on purity, but its survival depended on manpower. To declare every divergent human strain a mutant would be to condemn billions, perhaps trillions, of potential soldiers and workers to the pyre. And so, the cold, bureaucratic minds of the Adeptus Terra drew a line in the sand, a distinction that would define the fate of countless souls. They separated the stable from the unstable. A true mutant, in the eyes of the Imperium, is a chaotic and unpredictable anomaly. Their mutations are random, often cancerous, and serve as potential conduits for the corrupting influence of the warp. They are a flaw in the system, a bug in the code that must be purged without mercy. But an abhuman strain is different. Their genetic deviations are consistent. They breed true, passing their unique traits down through generations with a predictable biological certainty. Their form, though strange, is stable, and because it is stable, it can be classified. Because it can be classified, it can be understood. And because it can be understood, it can be exploited. This is the genesis of the abhuman, a sanctioned, tolerated, and ruthlessly utilized deviation from the human norm. Imagine a rogue trader vessel making landfall on a world lost for 5,000 years. The crew descends into a jungle of perpetual twilight, and they find not men, but sleek, furred beings with slitted eyes and unnerving agility. The initial reaction is terror, the instinct to raise a lasgun and cleanse the alien. But then the beings speak, their voices rasping a bastardized form of Low Gothic. They present icons of a long-forgotten emperor. They are human, but they are other. Their fate now rests on the cold calculus of the imperial official who finds them. Are they a stable strain? Are they free from the taint of chaos? And most importantly, are they useful? For these lost children of Terra, this judgment is the first step on a long, agonizing journey of service to an Imperium that will forever see them as both tool and travesty. This process of judgment is a cold and terrifying ritual. It is not the local priest or planetary governor who makes the final decision, but the cold, logical agents of the Adeptus Mechanicus and the Adeptus Terra, genitors from the Magos biologists, will arrive. Their red robes, a stark splash of color against a world that has known only isolation. They do not see people, they see phenotypes, genetic markers, and potential deviations. Blood is drawn by silver needles. Flesh is sampled with humming bioprobes, and generations of lineage are scrutinized by unblinking optical sensors. The Abhumans are subjected to this clinical, dispassionate analysis, their very biology put on trial. They are measured against the 73 stable classifications permitted under the Edict of the High Lords. To fall outside these narrow approved parameters is to be declared corrupt. To show signs of psychic awakening or unusual aggression is to be marked for purging. For those who pass this grueling inspection, their world is welcomed into the glorious light of the Imperium. But this is no gentle embrace. It is the grip of an iron fist. The first and most immediate price of their acceptance is the imperial tithe. They must now render unto their distant masters a portion of their world's resources, their industrial output, and, most importantly, their people. Fleets of black transport ships will descend from the sky to carry away their strongest sons and daughters for service. in the Astra Militarum, a fate most will never return from. They have traded a perilous freedom for a life of unending, thankless servitude. Their journey into the Imperium is not an ascension, but a conscription. The first step in a life where their strange forms will be exploited for the good of an empire that will forever hold them in contempt. Nowhere is the Imperium's staggering hypocrisy more apparent than in its treatment of its most vital mutants. The navigators, for instance, are a strain of Abhuman, so mutated that they possess a third eye, a warpie that allows them to perceive the treacherous currents of the immaterium. Without them, interstellar travel would be impossible. The Imperium would collapse. And so, the navigators are not merely tolerated, they are essential. They are organized into great and powerful noble houses, wielding immense political power and incalculable wealth. They are feared, yes, but they are also afforded a respect and privilege that is anathema to the very concept of human purity. Likewise, the astropaths, the soul-bound psychers who form the Imperium's network of faster-than-light communication, are a caste of sanctioned mutants. Their psychic abilities are a genetic deviation, yet they are a deviation the Imperium cannot live without. Their existence is a testament to the ultimate imperial truth. Pragmatism will always triumph over purity. Heresy is a matter of circumstance, and mutation is only a sin when it is not useful. This fragile sanctioning is a double-edged sword. For every abhuman world brought into the fold, another is condemned. If a rediscovered population is deemed too divergent, too unstable, or if their particular adaptations offer no tactical advantage to the imperial war machine, their rediscovery is not a homecoming, but a death sentence. The judgment is passed down from on high, a cold, logical decree from a faceless lord on distant Terra. A fleet arrives not with janitors and tithe collectors, but with the grim stormtroopers of the Ordo Hereticus, their armor black and their flamers full. There is no trial, no appeal. The world and its unsanctioned children are simply erased. A footnote in a subsector report, a statistic in a galactic census of the damned. This is the constant, terrifying reality that underpins the abhuman journey. Their very existence is a privilege granted by their masters, not a right. They walk a tightrope over a sea of fire, and the only thing keeping them from falling is the cold, unwavering, and utterly selfish calculus of imperial need. Once an abhuman strain is sanctioned, its journey of agonizing servitude truly begins. And nowhere is this servitude more brutal or more visible than in the meat grinder of the Astra Militarum. The Imperial Guard is a monument to the expendability of human life, an army of 10 billion souls whose primary strategy is to drown its enemies in a tide of bodies and loss fire. Within this grand, grinding machine, two abhuman strains have become ubiquitous, indispensable pillars of the imperial war effort, the Ogryns and the Rattlings. They are the hammer and the scalpel, the brute force and the precision strike, and their stories encapsulate the dual nature of the Abhumans' tolerated existence. They are revered for their utility on the battlefield, and reviled for their corrupted forms in the barracks. The journey of the Ogryn begins in pain, on worlds where the very air is a physical weight. They hail from a collection of high-gravity prison worlds, desolate planets where the force of gravity is so immense that a baseline human would be crushed into a red paste. Generations of survival in these brutal environments forged the Ogryn physique. Their bones became as dense as iron, their muscles swelled into rock-hard slabs, and their stature grew to accommodate the sheer power needed to simply stand upright. They are giants, towering over even the transhuman space marines. Their strength sufficient to rip the turret from a tank or pulp a charging orc knob with a single thunderous blow. This immense power, born from the agony of their environment, is the reason for their sanctioning. The Imperium saw in these hulking brutes the perfect living battering ram, a line breaker that could succeed where armor and artillery failed. But the price of their physical prowess was a tragic simplicity of mind. The Ogryn intellect is profoundly uncomplicated, often compared to that of a young, eager-to-please child. They are incapable of guile or deceit. Their loyalty to their commanders is absolute, and their understanding of the galaxy is filtered through a lens of literal, straightforward interpretation. This makes them both remarkably effective soldiers and deeply vulnerable. They follow orders without question, charging into machine gun fire with the same enthusiasm they would a dinner cue, to mitigate their intellectual limitations. The Adeptus Mechanicus developed a crude form of neurosurgery known as biochemical Ogryn neural enhancement, which earned its recipients the moniker Felinids. This procedure attempts to increase their cognitive function, allowing a Felinid to better retain orders and even formulate basic, independent tactics. On the battlefield, they are a terrifying sight, clad in crude, oversized flak armor and wielding massive ripper guns, automatic combat shotguns so large a normal man could not hope to lift one. They are deployed as shock troops, bodyguard units for high-ranking officers, and living siege engines. Their very presence, a force multiplier that can turn the tide of a desperate battle. Yet, for all their fearsome power, their inner world is one of simple fears and simple desires. They are often cripplingly claustrophobic. Their massive frames, ill-suited to the tight confines of imperial transports and trenches. Their unwavering loyalty is not born of ideological fervor, but from a deep, instinctual bond with the much smaller humans who lead them, whom they see as figures of immense intelligence and authority. An Ogryn will fight and die for his sergeant, not for the glory of the distant emperor, but for the promise of a warm meal and a word of praise. This is the core of their agonizing journey, to be a child trapped in the body of a monster, a simple soul yoked to a life of unimaginable violence. They are humanity's loyal giants, fighting and dying in wars they do not understand. For an Imperium that treasures their strength but scorns their nature, their only reward, the brief, fleeting approval of the little uns they are sworn to protect. If the Ogryn is the Imperium's hammer, the Ratling is its stiletto blade, a tool of subtle, precise, and often morally ambiguous utility, where the Ogryn is a monument to brute force and simple loyalty. The Ratling is a creature of cunning, patience, and a deep-seated sense of self-preservation. Their journey begins not on a brutal death world, but on temperate, comfortable planets where life is easy and food is plentiful. This environment of relative plenty fostered a culture that prized comfort, good living, and the avoidance of unnecessary hardship. Officially designated Homo sapiens minimus, they are a diminutive strain of abhuman, their small, wiry frames and nimble fingers perfectly suited for moving unseen and unheard. Their most remarkable adaptation, however, is their eyesight. They possess vision of incredible acuity, allowing them to mark targets at distances that would be a mere blur to a baseline human. Within the ranks of the Astra Militarum, Ratlings are burdened with a reputation for being incorrigible thieves, gamblers, and shirkers. They are viewed with deep suspicion by their fellow guardsmen and are the frequent targets of a commissar's disciplinary rage, and in many ways, this reputation is earned. A Ratling's loyalty is often first and foremost to their own comfort and survival. They are masters of the black market, capable of acquiring rare delicacies and forbidden laustics in even the most barren of war zones. Yet, this very same talent for opportunism and larceny is what makes them invaluable. The same skills a Ratling uses to pilfer a quartermaster's stores are the ones that allow them to infiltrate an enemy command post or acquire vital intelligence. Their survival instinct, seen as cowardice by some, is what makes them patient, cautious, and ultimately lethally effective. On the battlefield, the Ratling's role is that of the sniper, armed with a long-lass rifle and clad in a chameleon-like chameleon-line cloak. They are masters of stealth and marksmanship. A squad of Ratlings will find a hidden nest, a ruined bell tower, or a high ridge, and remain there for days, perfectly still, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. They do not fight in the bloody tide of the infantry charge. They fight a separate, silent war, a war of single, well-placed shots that can change the course of a battle. They are the bane of enemy officers, commissars, and heavy weapons specialists. A single crack from a Ratling's rifle can decapitate an orc warboss, shatter the nerve of an advancing enemy platoon, or disable a critical piece of war machinery from a kilometer away. They are the unseen specters of the battlefield, their presence often only known by the trail of high-value enemy corpses they leave in their wake. Their agonizing journey is not one of physical hardship, but of perpetual, grinding mistrust. Unlike the Ogryn, whose simple loyalty is plain for all to see, the Ratling's motivations are always in question. Every action is scrutinized, every success tinged with the suspicion that it was achieved for selfish reasons. They are vital to the imperial war machine, yet they are never truly part of it. They are outsiders in their own army, fighting alongside men who see them as little more than sneaky, untrustworthy mutants. They endure the contempt of their comrades and the harsh discipline of their commissars, all while performing one of the most demanding and psychologically taxing roles in modern warfare. They are the Imperium's necessary evil, the thieves and cowards who are called upon to perform acts of incredible bravery and precision. Their only reward a universe that will forever doubt their intentions. The journeys of the Ogryn and the Ratling are defined by their subservience, their existence validated only by their utility to the Astra Militarum. But there was another story, a grand and tragic epic of an abhuman race that did not merely serve the Imperium, but stood beside it as a new. They were a branch of humanity that weathered the age of strife, not by regressing into barbarism, but by building a stellar empire of their own, a civilization of such resilience and technological might that even the fleets of the Great Crusade could not easily bring them to heel. This is not a story of servitude. This is a eulogy for the lost sons of Terra, the master engineers and stubborn warriors known to the galaxy as the Squats. Theirs is the most agonizing journey of all, for it is a journey that has already ended in a grave of cosmic proportions. Their story begins in the dark days before the coming of the Emperor, when human colony ships plunged deep into the galactic core. They settled on a cluster of worlds that were punishingly hostile, worlds with gravity 2 or 3 times that of Terra and atmospheres thick with radiation. Survival in this crushing, irradiated environment demanded adaptation. Over thousands of years, the colonists evolved, becoming shorter, broader, and far more durable than baseline humans. They grew thick beards to protect their faces from the harsh elements, and their bodies became incredibly stout and resilient. But unlike so many other lost colonies, they did not lose their technological heritage. They clung to the knowledge of the past, using it to burrow deep into the mineral-rich hearts of their worlds, creating vast, subterranean fortress cities known as holds. By the time the Great Crusade rediscovered them, the squats were no longer simple colonists. They were a spacefaring, technologically advanced civilization, a league of independent strongholds with armies, fleets, and a culture forged in millennia of self-reliance. The Imperium's arrival at their borders was met not with awe, but with caution and suspicion. The squats were too powerful to be simply absorbed, and too stubborn to be easily intimidated. And so, a unique pact was formed. The squat holds would pledge allegiance to the emperor and pay the imperial tithe, providing regiments of their famously tough and well-equipped soldiers to the imperial war machine. In return, they would retain their political autonomy, their cultural traditions, and their ancestral worship. They became a unique entity within the Imperium, an allied Abhuman empire, a respected, if sometimes begrudged, partner. Their society was built on a foundation of loyalty to one's clan and hold, a deep reverence for ancestors, and a mastery of engineering that was second to none. They were the galaxy's greatest miners, tunnelers, and artisans, capable of creating weapons and war gear of incredible durability and power. Their armies were a sight to behold, clad in robust exo-armor and wielding potent weaponry that often surpassed standard imperial issue. They rode to war in colossal land trains, mobile fortresses that could traverse the most inhospitable terrain, and shattered enemy fortifications with ingenious weapons like the mole mortar, which burrowed beneath the ground to erupt amidst enemy lines. Their relationship with the Adeptus Mechanicus was one of fierce but respectful rivalry, two great engineering cultures often competing to create the most powerful war machines. For thousands of years, the squats endured. They fought alongside the Space Marines, stood firm against Orc WAAG etches, and held back the tides of chaos. They were a testament to the strength and diversity of the human genome, a proud and unyielding people who had carved a mighty civilization from the harshest worlds in the galaxy. They seemed eternal, a permanent, unshakable feature of the galactic landscape. But the galaxy is a place of unending hunger, and even the deepest, strongest holds cannot stand against an appetite that consumes worlds. Their strength became a legend within the Imperium, and with legend came a dangerous pride. The squats came to believe their holds were impregnable, their engineering superior, their martial traditions unbreakable. They had weathered the long night, they had stood equal with the agents of the Emperor, and they had carved a permanent home for themselves in the most hostile region of space. They saw themselves as an eternal fixture of the galaxy, a race of survivors whose foundations were sunk too deep into the bedrock of the universe to ever be shaken. It was a pride born of millennia of endurance, and it would be shattered by an enemy that did not besiege fortresses, but consumed them whole. An enemy that did not seek to conquer, but only to devour. From the cold, intergalactic void, a shadow fell across the warp, a psychic silence that heralded the coming of the great devourer. Hive, Fleet, Leviathan descended upon the galactic core, and the squat homeworlds were directly in its path. The war that followed was an apocalypse of unimaginable scale. The squats fought with a fury and tenacity that stunned even the bioengineers of the hive mind. Their subterranean fortresses, designed to withstand orbital bombardments and demonic incursions, became hellish battlegrounds against the swarming bodies of the tyrannid horde. The tunnels echoed with the thunder of bolters and the shriek of plasma fire as squat warriors in heavy exo-armor held the line against endless waves of hormagaunts and genestealers. Their mole mortar turned entire swarms into ichor, and their land trains crushed carnifexes beneath their mighty treads. They inflicted a terrible price for every inch of ground, fighting for their homes with the stubborn defiance that had defined their race for millennia. But the Tyranids are not an army that can be broken or routed. They are a biological storm. For every warrior the squats killed, 10,000 more were spawned in the bubbling reclamation pools on the surface. The hive mind learned, it adapted, turning the squats' own mastery of underground warfare against them, sending burrowing ripper swarms and molochs to collapse tunnels and breach the deepest sanctum. Ultimately, the squats' legendary endurance was not enough. Their worlds were stripped bare. Their mighty holds were cracked open. Their populations consumed. Their millennia of history and culture rendered down into raw biomass to fuel the Hive Fleet's relentless advance. The Imperium, locked in its own desperate struggles against the same tyrannid threat across 1,000 other worlds, could offer little aid. The squats, for the first time in their long history, were alone, and they were annihilated. Their civilization died. Their homeworlds were left as barren, airless rocks, every trace of their existence scoured from the surface. But the squat people were not rendered entirely extinct. Scattered across the galaxy were the survivors, regiments that had been seconded to the Astra Militarum, fighting on distant fronts, prospecting guilds and merchant fleets that had been off-world when the Devourer came, and the few lucky souls who managed to escape the fall of the holds. These survivors are now the living ghosts of a dead race. Their journey is one of perpetual mourning of a people unmoored from their history and their home. Many have integrated fully into the Astra Militarum, becoming grim and vengeful soldiers whose hatred for the Tyranids is a cold, burning fire. Others wander the void as nomadic traders or form mercenary companies, their advanced war gear and innate resilience making them highly sought-after soldiers of fortune. But they are a people defined by their own extinction, haunted by the memory of a home they can never return to. Their agony is the agony of remembrance, a constant, dull ache for the mountains of their ancestors and the hearths of their fallen holds. They are a cautionary tale whispered across the Imperium, a testament to the fact that in the grim darkness of the far future, no fortress is ever truly impregnable, and no race, no matter how strong, is safe from the hunger of the void. Beyond the well-documented roles of the Ogryn and the Ratling, and the tragic history of the squats, the journey of the Abhuman splinters into 1,000 stranger, more obscure paths. The Imperium is vast, a galaxy of 1,000,000 worlds, and on its forgotten fringes, and in its deepest shadows, humanity has adapted in ways that strain the very definition of the species. These are the Abhumans of rumor and myth, strains whose existence is a footnote in a rogue trader's log or a whispered heresy on a missionary's lips. Their stories are not grand epics of war and loss, but quiet, unsettling tales of isolation and suspicion, a testament to the sheer, terrifying diversity of mankind's scattered children and the Imperium's unending paranoia. Consider the Felinids. No official Astra Militarum record details their deployment, and no Ministorum sermon speaks of their homeworld. Their existence is a persistent rumor, a myth that clings to the shadowy history of the world of Carlos McConnell. The fragmented reports that do exist, gleaned from the logs of Chartist captains and the fevered writings of imperial cartographers, paint a picture of an abhuman strain possessing a startling feline grace. They are said to be faster and more agile than a baseline human, with slitted pupils that grant them superior vision in low light. And some tales even speak of a fine, downy fur covering their bodies. They are a mystery, a strain that is known to exist but has never been fully integrated into the imperial machine. Theirs is a journey of ambiguity, of being forever held at arm's length, human enough to be tolerated, but too alien to be trusted. Their quiet existence on their isolated world, a testament to the Imperium's willingness to simply ignore what it does not find immediately useful. From the twilight jungles of Carlos McConnell, we travel to the crushing abyssal depths of the ocean world of Gyre. Here, humanity's journey took a dive into the aquatic, creating the Abhuman strain known as the Pelagers. The colonists stranded on this world, a planet almost entirely covered by a single globe-spanning ocean, were forced to turn to the sea for survival. Over millennia, their bodies changed to suit their new environment, their limbs elongated, their hands and feet becoming webbed for efficient swimming. Their lungs developed an incredible capacity, and their bodies adapted to withstand the immense pressures of the deep. Some even developing rudimentary gill-like structures that allow them to draw oxygen from the water. They are the Imperium's only truly aquatic human strain, their entire culture and physiology bound to the sea. Their service to the Imperium is vital, but incredibly niche. They harvest precious resources from the ocean floor, a task no baseline human or servitor could perform. But their gift is also their prison. On land, they are clumsy and weak, their bodies unaccustomed to the harsh pull of a planet's full gravity. The agonizing journey of the Pelager is one of confinement, their incredible adaptations binding them forever to the crushing, dark abyss that created them. These strains, and countless others like them, exist in a state of sanctioned isolation. They are not numerous enough, or their skills not broadly applicable enough to be drafted into the Imperial Guard in vast numbers. They are the strange cousins of the human race, tolerated as long as they remain on their designated worlds and pay their tithes. Their very existence, a disquieting reminder of humanity's genetic plasticity. They represent a line in the sand for the Adeptus Terra, a point beyond which tolerance begins to fray and the cold, hard gaze of suspicion begins to fall. For the Imperium knows that for every stable, harmless strain, like the Pelagers, there may be another, more unsettling adaptation lurking in the dark. A branch of the human tree that has grown too twisted, too strange, and too close to the edge of damnation. Sometimes, the journey ends, not in quiet isolation, but in a blaze of suspicion and righteous fire. The Imperium's tolerance is a thin and brittle thing, and certain abhuman strains, through their very nature, put that tolerance to the ultimate test. They are the suspect and the damned, cautionary tales whose fates are whispered by commissars to keep their own troops in line. Their stories reveal the deepest fears of the imperial psyche. The fear of arrogance that seeks to improve upon the Emperor's sacred design, and the fear of weakness that allows the taint of the arch-enemy to take root. They are proof that the line between sanctioned tool and heretical monster is a razor's edge, and to cross it is to invite utter annihilation. The story of the Afriel strain is a paradox, an agonizing journey of being condemned not for being monstrous, but for being too perfect. The Afriels were not a product of natural evolution, but of the forbidden genetic science of the dark age of technology. They were engineered to be the perfect human specimen, taller, stronger, and more intelligent than a baseline human, with a flawless physiology and a handsome, noble bearing. For a time, they were seen as a gift, and elite Afriel regiments were raised for the Imperial Guard, where they served with distinction. But their perfection became their curse. In a society that venerates the flawed, suffering form of baseline humanity, the Afriel's effortless superiority was seen as an affront, an act of technological hubris. The ecclesiarchy preached that they were an arrogant attempt to surpass the divine form of man. Whispers of genetic instability and hidden corruption spread, and soon the heroes became pariahs. Their proud regiments were disbanded, and the strain was declared suspect. The survivors were hunted, driven into the shadows, their perfection now a brand of heresy. If the Afriels were condemned for their perfection, the beastmen were damned for their corruption. For millennia, Homo sapiens variatus, known colloquially as Gors or beastmen, were a sanctioned abhuman strain, possessing a savage fusion of human and animalistic traits: horns, coarse fur, digitigrade legs. Their natural ferocity made them brutally effective shock troops. Beastmen regiments were a common sight in the Imperial Guard, hurled at the enemy's lines as a wave of untamed bestial fury. But their primal nature, the very thing that made them useful, was also their fatal weakness. Their minds lacked the sophisticated discipline of baseline humans, making them incredibly susceptible to the raw emotional call of the warp. The blood god, Khorne, found a perfect congregation in their warrior hearts, and entire beastmen regiments began to fall to chaos, turning on their former comrades with blood-crazed savagery. The Imperium's response was as swift as it was absolute. The entire strain was reclassified. No longer abhumans, they were now mutants, heretics, and enemies. A galaxy-wide purge was declared. The journeys of the Afriels and the beastmen serve as a constant, bloody warning to all who deviate from the human norm. The Afriels proved that even physical perfection is a form of heresy in the eyes of a jealous and fearful humanity. The beastmen proved that any inherent weakness, any spiritual crack in a species' soul, will eventually be exploited by the unsleeping horrors of the warp. They are the unforgivable ones, the strains whose existence forced the Imperium to draw its lines of tolerance in blood and fire. Their ghosts haunt the dark corners of the galaxy, a chilling reminder to every other abhuman that the title of sanctioned is a temporary reprieve, not a permanent right, and that the path from tolerated servant to purged monster is a short and treacherous one. From the simple loyalty of the Ogryn to the tragic memory of the squat, from the unseen vigilance of the Ratling to the suspect perfection of the Afriel, the agonizing journey of the abhuman is a fractured and varied one. Yet, beneath the staggering diversity of their forms and fates, a single, unifying truth binds them all in a fellowship of suffering. It is the cold, immutable fact that their existence is defined not by their humanity, but by their utility. In the great, grinding calculus of the Imperium, they are not seen as citizens or as subjects of the Emperor. They are tools. They are living, breathing assets, sanctioned and tolerated only as long as their unique adaptations serve a purpose for the insatiable imperial war machine. Their personhood is an afterthought, their cultures a curiosity, their souls a matter of theological debate for priests who would see them as born in sin. This cold pragmatism bleeds into every aspect of their lives, creating a reality of constant grinding prejudice. To the average Imperial guardsman, an Ogryn is not a fellow soldier, but a hulking, simple-minded beast, a creature of terrifying strength to be pointed at the enemy and kept at a safe distance. A Ratling is not a comrade, but a sneaky, untrustworthy thief, their every action viewed through a lens of suspicion. This scorn is codified in the sermons of the Ecclesiarchy, which preaches the sanctity of the pure human form, while reluctantly acknowledging the necessity of these sanctioned mutants. The Abhuman is a walking contradiction to the imperial creed, a living blasphemy whose existence is justified only by the blood they shed in the Emperor's name. They are born into a galaxy that is eternally disgusted by their very presence. Imagine the psychological weight of such an existence, to fight with unwavering loyalty for an Imperium that fears and despises you, to charge into the mouth of hell for commanders who see you as little more than an intelligent weapon, more expendable than a lemon rust tank because you can be so easily replaced. To know in your heart that your only value is derived from the very strangeness that marks you for scorn. The Ogryn's strength makes him a monster. The Ratling's cunning makes him a deviant. The Pelager's aquatic form makes him a prisoner. The very adaptations that grant them their sanctioning are the brands that mark them as outsiders. Their journey is a constant, agonizing paradox, a battle fought on two fronts, one against the Xenos, the heretic, and the traitor, and another, more intimate war against the contempt of their own comrades. This is the ultimate purpose of the Abhuman, to be the living embodiment of the Imperium's foundational hypocrisy. The Imperium screams of purity, but its armies are bolstered by the impure. It preaches the nobility of the human form, but it wins its wars with the brute force of the monstrous. The Abhumans are the dirty secret of humanity's survival, the living proof that in the grim darkness of the far future, ideals are a luxury that cannot be afforded. Their suffering is not a flaw in the imperial system. It is a core component of it. They are the sacrifice made not on a glorious altar, but in the dark, bloody engine room of the Imperium. Their pain, the fuel that keeps the great machine of survival running for one more day. They are the agony at the heart of the Emperor's hollow dream. Their journey has no glorious end. In the ossified, dogmatic nightmare of the 41st millennium, there is no hope for a future of acceptance or equality. The Imperium is a machine that has forgotten how to change, and its need for these specialized living tools is greater than ever. As long as there are walls to be breached, officers to be assassinated, and hostile worlds to be mined, there will be a need for the Abhuman. The endless, brutal cycle will continue. New strains will be discovered on forgotten worlds, their people subjected to the cold judgment of the genitors. The sanctioned will be tithed, their children ripped from their homes to feed the unending hunger of the galaxy-spanning war. Their strange bodies thrown into the fray as expendable assets. The Ogryn will continue to die for a kind word, the Ratling will continue to survive by his wits, and the ghosts of the squats will continue to fight in memory of a home that is nothing but dust and echoes. And yet, in a final, tragic irony, these strange and broken forms are perhaps the truest expression of what it means to be human. Humanity's greatest strength, the very trait that allowed it to conquer the stars in the first place, is its incredible, stubborn adaptability. It is a species that can bend and warp and change to survive in any environment, no matter how hostile. The Abhumans are the living proof of this legacy. They are humanity unchained, humanity as shaped by the brutal, indifferent hand of the galaxy itself. It is the Imperium, with its rigid dogma of purity and its terror of change, that is the true anomaly. The Abhumans are a reflection of humanity's past and a testament to its desperate, ongoing struggle for a future. They are not heroes, they are not villains, they are survivors. Theirs is the story of being born into a universe that does not want you, yet demands your service. It is the story of finding loyalty in the heart of a simple giant, of finding precision in the hands of a selfish thief, and of finding honor in the memory of a dead race. They are the strange fruit of humanity's scattered seed, and their flesh and blood is the bitter harvest that sustains the Imperium. Their agonizing journey is the silent secret history of the galaxy, a testament to the fact that in order to survive the horrors of the void, mankind sacrificed its own children, and in doing so, traded its soul for a few more. Blood-soaked, desperate millennia in the cold, uncaring light of a dying age.